Top 10 Strongest Ground Forces Army in the World 2026. This ranking-style narration uses the 2026 Global Firepower (GFP) Index as an evidence-based starting point for strength, because GFP aggregates more than 60 factors into its power index, PBUR index, where a lower score indicates stronger conventional capability, and then, specifically for a ground forces lens, it spotlights each nation's GFP land forces snapshot: tanks, armored vehicles, self-propelled artillery, towed artillery, and MLRS rocket artillery alongside manpower context. In other words, think of this as the world's top land power ecosystems as reflected in GFP's 2026 model, not a prediction of who would win a war, and not a claim that equipment totals alone decide battlefield performance. At number 10 is Italy, ranked 10th overall in GFP's 2026 list with a PUR index of 0.2211, presenting a smaller but modern European land force profile that, on GFP's tally, includes 203 tanks, 87,364 vehicles, 64 self-propelled artillery systems, 108 towed artillery pieces, and 21 MLRS units, backed by an estimated total military personnel figure of 280,800 and a defense budget figure in the tens of billions of USD, which together reflect a force built for NATO and EU operations, expeditionary contributions, and high readiness professional formations rather than mass mobilization. At number 9 is Turkey, ranked 9th with a PBUR index of 0.1975, and here the land power emphasis becomes clearer. GFP credits Turkey with 2,284 tanks, 98,193 vehicles, 1,045 self-propelled artillery systems, 635 towed artillery pieces, and 237 MLRS units, plus an estimated total military personnel figure of 11,000, a blend that signals a regionally heavy ground posture shaped by geography, proximity to multiple theaters, and an industrial base that GFP notes as a factor in the country's broader defense profile. At number 8 is the United Kingdom, ranked 8th with a PUR index of 0.1881, a reminder that elite ground forces can sit inside a smaller inventory footprint. GFP lists 288 tanks, 94,064 vehicles, 14 self-propelled artillery systems, 126 towed artillery pieces, and 43 MLRS units, with an estimated total military personnel figure of 173,270, highlighting a force that is comparatively compact in armored mass, yet supported by strong financial capacity and alliance integration, and historically oriented toward deployable, professional brigades and combined arms interoperability. At number 7 is Japan, ranked 7th with a PBUR index of 0.1876, and despite constitutional and doctrinal constraints, its ground forces are presented by GFP as a capable, well-resourced deterrence force. 734 tanks, 54,390 vehicles, 193 self-propelled artillery systems, 480 towed artillery pieces, and 99 MLRS units, with an estimated total military personnel figure of 332,500 and strong financial indicators on the GFP profile, reinforcing the idea of technologically enabled defense of complex terrain and critical sea lines of communication, with land power designed to operate in joint contexts. At number 6 is France, ranked 6th with a PBUR index of 0.1798, and France's ground force story in GFP is not about huge tank fleets, but about a combined arms system anchored by modern armored vehicles, professional manpower, and expeditionary readiness. GFP lists 427 tanks, 110,184 vehicles, 74 self-propelled artillery systems, 0 towed artillery pieces, and 9 MLRS units, with an estimated total military personnel figure of 457,444, suggesting a land force optimized for rapid deployment and sustained overseas operations, paired with high-end capabilities in other domains that influence the overall PBUR index. At number 5 is South Korea, ranked 5th with a PBUR index of 0.1642, and if you want a ground war posture on paper, this is one of the clearest among the top 10. GFP counts 1,131 tanks, 117,460 vehicles, 2,780 self-propelled artillery systems, 5,800 towed artillery pieces, and 525 MLRS units, with an estimated total military personnel figure of 3,670,000 and a reserve structure that GFP also tracks, which together reflect a force sized and structured around immediate territorial defense, dense fires, and rapid reinforcement under a high-threat scenario. At number 4 is India, ranked 4th with a PWR index of 0.1346. And India's ground force scale is enormous in manpower terms, while also maintaining substantial armored and artillery depth. GFP lists 3,913 tanks, 163,554 vehicles, 100 self-propelled artillery systems, 5,040 towed artillery pieces, and 300 MLRS units, alongside an estimated total military personnel figure of 4,958,000 and very large mobilization potential metrics on its profile. The mix suggests a land force designed to cover multiple frontiers and operational environments, from high-altitude terrain to deserts, while sustaining long-duration readiness through size, logistics, and industrial support. At number 3 is China, ranked 3rd with a PRINDEX of 0.0919, and GFP's land forces snapshot shows a major mechanized force paired with extremely large manpower and industrial indicators: 5,170 tanks, 152,040 vehicles, 2,140 self-propelled artillery systems, while we had 400 towed artillery pieces and 2,770 MLRS units, supported by an estimated total military personnel figure of 3,170,000 and very high Army personnel numbers in the profile. In a ground forces narrative, the notable pattern is a high balance of tanks, armored vehicles, and rocket artillery, suggesting a doctrine that can combine maneuver with massed fires within a broader national system that GFP rates highly across finance and logistics categories. At number 2 is Russia, ranked 2nd with a PRINDEX of 0.0791, and in GFP's 2026 accounting, Russia remains one of the world's most artillery and armor-heavy land powers: 5,630 tanks, 126,512 vehicles, 3,603 self-propelled artillery systems, 5,920 towed artillery pieces, and 2,486 MLRS units, paired with an estimated total military personnel figure of 3,570,000. As presented, that structure emphasizes large-scale land combat capacity and deep fires, with enormous artillery totals that often dominate any ground force comparison, while the overall ranking reflects the combined weight of manpower, material, and strategic depth as GFP models it. At number 1 is the United States, ranked 1st with a PORA index of 0.0741, and even when we narrow the lens to ground forces, GFP's inventory totals point to a uniquely vast combined arms ecosystem and logistics-driven scale: 4,166 tanks, 409,660 vehicles, 1,421 self-propelled artillery systems, 1,878 towed artillery pieces, and 1,731 MLRS units, backed by an estimated total military personnel figure of 2,132,530 and the largest defense budget figure in the 2026 profile. The standout here is not just any single category, but the breadth: very large vehicle counts that imply massive mechanized capacity, sustainment fleets, engineering and support vehicles, and the infrastructure to move and maintain them, plus the global enabling system that GFP incorporates into PWR Index. Stepping back, the top 10 in GFP's 2026 list: United States, Russia, China, India, South Korea, France, Japan, United Kingdom, Turkey, and Italy, represent different ways to be strong on land. Some lean on massed fires and armored depth, some on professional expeditionary combined arms, some on large manpower bases and mobilization potential, and some on high readiness and alliance integration. And the reason these particular 10 rise to the top in this 2026 framing is that GFP's formula rewards not only the count of tanks and artillery, but also the underlying ability to finance, field, sustain, and deploy force over time. For a viewer, the key takeaway is to interpret these numbers as a snapshot of potential conventional land war capacity within a broader national system, useful for comparison, but always incomplete without training quality, doctrine, ISR, air, defense, electronic warfare, stockpile depth, maintenance realities, and the hard lessons of real conflict.